Hello, my name is Brian Harris. I am conducting my research presentation on software as a service. I chose software as a service because it is a thing that I work with on a daily basis at my job. I create applications using a software as a service platform. Um, this presentation won't really have my face the whole time, but I just wanted to give everyone a face to the voice that will be behind the slides. So if you bear with me for the next 15 to 20 minutes, I really appreciate it, and we'll get started.
Alright, here is a quick overview of what I will be talking about today. First things first, we will understand what software as a service is. From now on, I will be saying just SaaS instead of software as a service. It's just a little bit easier to pronounce. We will also go over a few companies that currently utilizes SaaS. We'll go over the pros and cons of adapting SaaS, some of the differences between service-oriented architecture, which from now on I'll just say SOA, and SaaS, some of the pros and cons of combining SaaS and SOA. We're going to go over some of the costs of adapting SaaS, and we'll look over some standards that have been adopted because of SaaS. And then we'll go over the references. Alright, so first things first, what is SaaS? So basically, in the beginning, SaaS started out in the 1960s by companies such as IBM. At that time, it wasn't the software as a service, as you know. It was more so a time sharing type of situation where IBM would utilize their mainframes as backbones for companies such as banks, financial providers, things like that. Software as a service as a cloud-based platform started in the late 1990s. Salesforce was the first official SaaS provider. Software as a service can be defined as an application or a series of applications that are accessible on demand over the internet, typically through a web browser. SaaS was created to limit the costs of maintaining complex software by placing responsibilities on the provider. So basically, the provider would provide updates, integration, security features to help the company who's adopting the SaaS to save some money, offloading some of the employees that they would need. Technically, just about everyone uses SaaS on a daily basis. If you use Facebook, LinkedIn, anything like that, you're using a software as a service. Companies that utilize SaaS as the backbone of their infrastructure typically fall within the technology, finance, or management fields. Speaking of companies that use SaaS, here are four that I saw. American Red Cross, they utilize Salesforce to support fundraising, case management, transportation, etc. They also have a division within the company that basically specialize in just Salesforce. They're called the Center of Excellence. Jet.com, not to be confused with the magazine, utilizes Slack for employee communication. Slack is also used to keep track of alerts created by their multiple tracking applications that they use. So basically, they have tracking applications that help users find the best price based on some algorithms that they have implemented. I'm sure everyone has heard of Netflix or used Netflix before. Netflix uses Amazon Web Services to help with streaming, search, business logics, things like that. A lot of their movies are um, actually in their own infrastructure, but to stream that the movies they utilize AWS. Genworth, which is the company that I work for, we utilize Pega as a SaaS to produce applications for our customer service applications. And for employee management, we utilize a SaaS called Workday. Some of the pros to adopting SaaS, some of these things were said before. They're easily accessible by the customer. Since most of the software infrastructure is managed by the provider, a business is able to um, provide easy access to many users simply with a unique username and a password. So that makes it easier to collaborate with others who may be offshore or working remotely. Companies are able to profit utilizing less employees and automate a little bit more. Of course, companies are always trying to use less employees, and that drives profits. It's easier to provide upgrades and improve functionality or security. The business the business's IT staff is not required to provide updates to the software. The vendor provides the updates and the bug fixes. This is something that in my job they call them hot fixes. So if we run into an issue within the software, all we have to do is contact Pega, and they would provide a hot fix to our software to fix a bug. Businesses are also able to scale their products based on the volume of the time of day, since the software is not located on company-owned servers. So in Netflix's situation, if there is a peak time during the day where they need a lot of streaming, they're able to ramp up servers just like that, and then shut those servers off on the slower times throughout the day. This, all in all these things create lower costs for the company that is using software as a service. Some of the cons to adopting SaaS are because a lot of consumer data being located within the cloud, companies are concerned about data security. Pretty sure you heard of hacks and things like that. Customer data can get taken if put in the wrong hands. SaaS applications usually rely on a consistent internet connection. Without the connection, productivity drops significantly due to the inability to access the software and the data. That happens sometimes at my job, where if a server was to go down in our testing environment or our dev environment, we aren't able to access the environment until the server has been bounced, or some people may know it as just being restarted. Outages due to various situations will cause downtime, which can affect productivity, customer experience, and profit. So if you have a e-commerce business or a business that operates 24 hours, if you don't have the servers up and running for that SaaS that you use, there's a chance that a customer may not be able to navigate through the website or make a purchase. Let's say if PayPal is down, then people can't make purchases on various websites. There are some companies that have unique businesses. Adopting SaaS may be difficult due to a SaaS provider not being able to provide that line of business. SaaS applications tend to run slower on applications that are ran on dedicated servers. Of course, if you have an application on your computer, it will run a lot faster than something that relies on an internet connection. There are limitations to SaaS applications, are sometimes not discovered until the middle or end of production. We run into those issues at my job constantly, where there are certain things that we did previously were not able to do because there may be some type of limitation in the software that we use. There's also a reliance on a SaaS provider. It could be risky. If the SaaS provider was to go out of business, the consuming business could potentially lose millions. Doesn't really happen that often, but it can happen. The differences between software service-oriented architecture and SaaS is that SOA is similar to SaaS, but at a more granular level. SaaS is a method of delivering software. The user doesn't have a physical copy of software being provided. The software is hosted by the provider, and the consumer business pays for a license to use the software. SOA doesn't contain business logic like SaaS. SOA consists of small processes that make up a service. The processes typically are disconnected from each other. This allows the processes to be reused with other services. SOA can be implemented without SaaS and vice versa. So pros and cons of combining SaaS and SOA. So some of the pros are scalability, being able to scale according to consumer demands. It's very beneficial for a SaaS provider. A provider such as AWS can scale up their cloud storage during peak times and scale back during times when not much storage is being used by the company's consumers. Reusability: by implementing SOA into SaaS, a provider can utilize reusable processes of different types of services and benefit by licensing these new services out to other businesses. For example, we're going to use AWS again. They offer multiple services in different tiers to provide a more customizable experience for each business. A con that I saw is that adopting SaaS is very complex. Converting an existing SaaS structure to a SOA design requires a lot of changes that need to be made within the business. The entire infrastructure behind the application will need to be redone. It could take some time before a rate of return is received, rate of investment is seen. So it's not just a software change, it's a whole business-wide change. It's something that everyone needs to adopt. Some of the costs are of implementing. So basically, the cost of implementing SaaS is very flexible. It can vary based off of many different needs of the business. Some of these factors can include the type of service, the size of the business. Basically, if it's a large company with many users, the price may be different per person, probably lower per person compared to a smaller company, whereas it may be that price per person may not be the option. They may go off of something like a tiered price or another price. We'll get into the types of pricing in just a second. The cost of training or hiring specialized employees. So if you need somebody from Salesforce to come in, if you're the American Red Cross, just to teach some of the people that are working there or train them, that costs extra money. IT support if you have any type of issues, providing 24-hour IT access may cost extra. Some of the examples of pricing that I've seen are flat rate pricing. So basically, a SaaS provider can offer an unchanged monthly rate that grants a user full access to their product. That's probably something that a small um, business may use. Usage-based pricing, basically pricing that changes depending on the consumer's usage. Factors that affect usage could be the amount of data being used, like gigabits per second, or gigabytes per second, or API requests or something like that. Um, this pricing technique is actually adopted by AWS along with tier pricing, which tier pricing is usually when a SaaS provider would provide 2 to 3 different tiers that a consumer could select. The bottom tiers will contain limitations on features such as storage or speed, while a much more expensive tier will have all the perks that the provider offers. Um, HubSpot, which is a software provider, offers tiered software options. Per user pricing is basically pricing that is being adjusted based on the amount of users. Simple as the name is. The pricing is the pricing method is one of the most popular and adopted pricing options due to its simplicity. This pricing method is similar to a flat rate pricing because each user pays a flat rate for the service. Then there is um, types of pricing where there is a tiered pricing method that has a free unit also. The free option allows the user to try the product without having to pay initially. Usually the product has a trial period, or the features are very limited to encourage users to eventually purchase the full product. LinkedIn, if I'm pretty sure if you have a LinkedIn account, you've seen them try to advertise the premium LinkedIn account to give you more access to who's searching your name and different algorithms and things like that. Also, Slack is a company that utilizes this pricing method. Um, some of the standards that have been created by SaaS is service organization control reports. Basically, these are internal control reports conducted by the service provider to ensure that the services provided are functioning correctly and security is not being compromised. Reports like these provide assurance to a consumer that may be audited on a regular basis. There are 3 different types of SOCs. There's SOC1, basically that's a report on the service company, their internal control over financial reporting, or ICFR. There is the report on controls at the service company relevant to security, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and privacy, which is a SOC2. And then SOC3 is basically an SOC2, but the company doesn't need the additional knowledge necessary to utilize an SOC2. All right, so that is software as a service. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment underneath this video if we need to upload this to YouTube, or feel free to send me an email at bharry67@mail.depaul.edu. I would be happy to answer any of the questions that are sent to me. Once again, I want to thank you for sticking with me during this this presentation, and I hope that y'all have a wonderful day. And also, here are my references.